Guys, today, every time Angel Reese gets on a basketball court, it just looks more sad, more pathetic than the game prior. The missed layups get worse. The falling over gets worse. The falling down gets worse. The rebounds increase. Angel Reese is a low light machine, not a highlight machine. A low light machine.
That is not normal criticism. When somebody stops calling your mistakes bad basketball and starts calling you a low light machine, the conversation has moved way beyond one missed shot. And the reason this parody exploded tells you a lot more than the joke itself.
Finish it, offensive rebound, second chance, it's Canada for three. Weak side board falls right. Back to Reese. Thought about it and
You see the communication.
The of getting the youth some experience early in the season to a dozen. Reese, well short. Right. It's Canada. In and out for three. Offensive rebound. There is Reese. Couldn't finish it.
Those are the possessions people keep clipping. Offensive rebounds, another attempt, another miss, sometimes another rebound, and suddenly one trip down the floor becomes an entire social media argument about Angel Reese. Every player in basketball has ugly possessions. Guards throw passes into the third row. Elite shooters go cold. Centers miss point-blank finishes. But Reese has become one of those players whose mistakes are isolated, replayed, slowed down, stitched together and turned into content almost instantly. And that matters because basketball discussion online is rarely about the full 40 minutes anymore. It is about the 10-second clip that survives after the game. If you make 3 winning defensive rotations that nobody uploads and then miss a layup that gets 6 million views, guess which version of you the internet thinks it knows? That does not mean the criticism is automatically unfair. Finishing around the rim is part of the job, especially for a front-court player who gets repeated opportunities close to the basket. The interesting question is why these particular misses have become such a recognizable genre that somebody can parody them and viewers immediately know who the target is. And later there is one part of the imitation that explains why this went from ordinary trolling to something Reese's defenders genuinely hate.
When you want to be like Angel Reese, this is the type of imitation that you need to do, right? This was from May 17th, that clip. But every game there's clips like that, right? Just earlier this week, we had 3 games, I think, of Angel Reese putting up terrible performances, just like that. 3 for 13, like a 2 for 9, just really bad news bears in there.
That is the premise of the joke. People used to imitate the beautiful parts of their favorite stars. Kobe Bryant's fadeaway, Allen Iverson's crossover, the headband, the sleeve, the swagger. This skit reverses that entire idea. Instead of copying a signature move because it looks unstoppable, the creator copies what critics consider Reese's signature mistakes. That is why the clip cuts deeper than somebody simply saying, "She had a bad game. A box score disappears tomorrow." An impersonation can become a meme that follows you for months. And notice what the host does immediately after setting that up. He references recent inefficient shooting performances and says these clips are not isolated. That is the argument he wants viewers to accept. Not that one ugly possession exists, because that would prove nothing, but that enough similar possessions exist for fans to recognize a pattern. The fair counterpoint is obvious. A low-light compilation is designed to remove everything that weakens the joke. It is not going to show the rebound that ends an opponent's possession, the defensive contest that forces a miss, the screen that frees a teammate, or a physical play that creates an extra possession. By definition, a low-light package selects the worst moments, but selection alone does not explain why the joke works. A parody only lands when the audience recognizes the behavior being exaggerated, and once the creator starts acting out the details, that recognition becomes the entire story.
You know what they say? Imitation is the nicest form of flattery.
15 points for her, 11 boards.
Mabry lobs it inside. Good job by Holmes to poke it free. 7 on the shot clock. 3 on the way.
Reese seals off. In and out. Gets it back. The old board, no. Reese again tipped away. It should stay. Dream drive. Angel Reese off the rim.
Listen to the reaction in that sequence. The rebound is almost treated like the setup, because everyone is waiting for what happens after it. Miss, recover, try again. That cycle has become central to the way Reese is discussed online. It has even produced the mocking term the host uses earlier, me-bounds, the accusation that some of her rebounding totals are inflated by grabbing her own misses. That word is fan slang, not an official statistic, and it is usually deployed to dismiss a skill that absolutely does matter. Offensive rebounding is valuable. Recovering your own miss is better than allowing the defense to take possession. If a player misses, fights for the ball and creates another chance, the rebound itself is still useful. The criticism is really about what came before the rebound. If you repeatedly create second and third opportunities but do not convert enough of them, people begin reading a large rebound total differently. Instead of saying, "Look how dominant she was on the glass," critics say, "How many of those rebounds came because the first attempt did not fall?" Those are two interpretations of the same possession, and that is where the Angel Reese argument gets unusually emotional. Her supporters see relentless activity, physicality, and rebounding instinct. Her harshest critics see inefficient finishing being rewarded with another statistical category. Neither side needs to invent what happened. They simply place the emphasis in different spots. But the parody takes it one step further. It is not merely making fun of the misses. It begins reducing Reese's entire offensive identity to awkward movement, second attempts, and physical plays. That is where the debate starts becoming less about one skill and more about whether people are evaluating her game honestly at all.
Oh. Damn.
Reese left alone, slaps the backboard for the lay-in.
Slaps it. Yeah, they really put a highlight tape of Angel Reese slapping the back. Dude, I mean, come on. Most of us were slapping the backboard in 7th, 8th grade. The fact that that's a highlight in the WNBA is like, damn, man. That's
The backboard line is brutal because it attacks the gap between what counts as an exciting highlight and what this commentator expects from a professional star. He sees a backboard slap in a highlight package and basically asks, "Is that really the standard we're celebrating?" But there is an important distinction here. Highlight packages are marketing. They are not scouting reports. A dramatic block, a hard rebound, or an athletic play can belong in a promotional reel, even if the same player has technical flaws offensively. The existence of a flashy edit does not prove somebody is an elite scorer, just like an ugly compilation does not prove somebody contributes nothing. What makes Reese such an easy target for this format is the contrast. She entered the league with enormous attention, a massive personal brand, and a fan base that discusses her like a franchise-level star. That level of visibility changes the standard people apply to you. Nobody spends hours making parody videos about players they do not care about. So when a player receives star-level marketing, critics begin demanding star-level polish. Every awkward finish becomes evidence. Every missed layup becomes part of a case. Every confident statement gets measured against the next game. And that pressure is multiplied because Reese is not just being judged as Angel Reese. She is constantly discussed within a larger WNBA culture war involving popularity, media coverage, fan bases, and comparisons with other young stars. Basketball becomes almost secondary. That is why a harmless-looking comedy clip can generate angry comments almost immediately. Some people believe they are laughing at basketball mistakes. Other people believe the entire purpose is to delegitimize a player they think gets unfairly targeted. The next section shows exactly how fast those two conversations collide.
2 seconds shoots, and Reese rips it away!
15 points for her, 11.
wow. What you saw in none of these clips was any version of skill. What you didn't see in these was anything that resembled skill. Getting fried in the comment section. His release is too high. All right, this one's funny. He made more baskets in this clip than she did the entire night.
There is the central accusation. What you didn't see was anything that resembled skill. Then comes the comment saying the impersonator made more baskets in the parody than Reese did in the game. That first claim is obviously an opinion, and an extremely sweeping one. You can criticize finishing without pretending rebounding, defense, positioning, and physicality requires zero skill. Professional basketball does not work that way. If Reese truly possessed no useful basketball skills whatsoever, she would not be playing these minutes at this level. But extreme language is exactly what performs online. Nobody posts, Angel Reese has legitimate rebounding strengths, while still needing substantial improvement as a finisher. That might be a more defensible basketball argument, but it is not becoming a meme. She can't ball becomes a meme. That difference is important because the internet gradually pushes everybody toward opposite ends. One group responds to excessive praise by exaggerating every weakness. The other group responds to excessive criticism by defending almost every part of her game. Eventually, people stop arguing over individual possessions and start defending identities. Are you pro-Reese or anti-Reese? Once that happens, even acknowledging something obvious becomes controversial. If she misses several attempts around the rim, critics treat that as proof of everything they already believed. If she grabs double-digit rebounds, supporters treat that as proof that everybody mocking her understands nothing. Meanwhile, the useful basketball question gets buried. What happens if a player with Reese's rebounding motor and physical tools becomes a significantly more efficient finisher? That would change the entire conversation, because the ridicule depends on the misses continuing. The parody only remains accurate if the underlying weakness remains visible enough for the audience to recognize it. And that brings us to the shot chart joke, which is probably the most damaging part of the entire skit because it gives the mockery something that feels statistical.
Wow. Leading the league in offensive rebounds and missed shots. Did anyone notice she did a shot fake right-handed and she shoots left-handed? I actually did not notice that. This is accurate as fuck. I'll bet my life that she blocked you for this. Damn. Damn. Yeah, I'm already knowing what's about to happen. It's so obvious that she can't ball.
Read those reactions carefully. People are not simply laughing at one missed attempt. They are analyzing the imitation itself, the hand used on the fake, the shooting motion, the number of misses, even where the shots were taken. That is what turns parody into something more powerful. The more specific an impression becomes, the more viewers feel like they are watching an observation rather than a random insult. One commenter says the creator's misses looked exactly like Reese's real shot chart. Another says it is obvious she cannot play. Those are very different levels of claim. Shot location criticism can be examined. Declaring that a professional player simply cannot play is a much broader judgment. But social media merges them together. A player can be excellent at one part of the game and visibly underdeveloped somewhere else. That is common, particularly early in a career. The problem for Reese is that finishing is one of the easiest weaknesses for casual viewers to recognize. You do not need advanced analytics to understand a missed shot from a few feet away. It happens directly in front of you. Rebounding technique is less obvious. Defensive positioning is less obvious. Drawing attention in the paint is less obvious. A layup rolling off the rim is impossible to hide. That visual simplicity gives critics a nearly unlimited supply of content. One miss can become a GIF. 3 misses in a possession can become a viral post. Several games can become a compilation. Then someone makes an impersonation. Then another account reacts to the impersonation. Eventually the reaction video becomes bigger than the original basketball possession. That is the modern athlete content machine. And here is where the story pivots. Because the host does not keep the discussion confined to Angel Reese's game. He connects it to the much larger argument hanging over almost every WNBA conversation right now. Attention.
Yeah, this is a real-life shot chart that Angel Reese has. Now, the Indiana Fever are going up against the Atlanta Dream today in the State Farm Arena because when Caitlin Clark comes to town, they have to move it to the Big Boy Arena, right? Angel Reese being in Atlanta isn't enough for them to permanently move games to the State Farm Arena because they don't even sell out their little miniature arena. So what's the point of turning on the lights for the State Farm Arena? But Caitlin Clark comes to town. She brings her own economy with her.
That stimulus package line tells you what this commentary is really trying to establish. The speaker is contrasting Reese's star power with Caitlin Clark's ability to generate attention and economic activity around WNBA games. Set aside the exaggeration about businesses and hotels for a second. The framing is what matters. Reese is being evaluated not only by how she plays, but also by where she sits inside the league's popularity hierarchy. That is a much harder battle to win because popularity is not a basketball move you can practice tomorrow morning. When two athletes are linked by media narratives, college history, fan arguments, and competing brands, every performance becomes comparative even when the other player is not involved in the possession. Reese misses a shot. Somebody mentions Clark. Clark draws a huge crowd. Somebody uses it against Reese. Reese posts a double-double. Fans argue whether rebounds are being valued correctly. The actual question changes every 15 seconds, and that constant comparison creates distorted expectations for both players. Clark's supporters can become so determined to prove she is uniquely valuable that every other young star gets treated like a threat to the argument. Reese's supporters can become so determined to defend her legitimacy that ordinary criticism gets interpreted as part of a campaign against her. Once fandom reaches that level, a comedy skit is never just comedy. It becomes ammunition. That is why this parody drew so many comments from people who were not debating whether the impersonation was funny. They were debating whether the creator had the right to make it in the first place. And the most revealing comments are not from the people laughing. They are from the people who became genuinely angry, because that reaction shows exactly where the joke touched a nerve.
You notice she's always trying to play bully ball. Yeah, she's always trying to play bully ball, but then once a real bully like Alyssa Thomas shows up, the bully ball stops. You guys haven't noticed that. Once the real bully shows up, the bully ball quickly stops. The tail goes in between the legs. Dog's been making these since 2017. If you can't get over on different content.
There is another criticism worth separating from the noise. The host argues that Reese sometimes tries to impose herself physically until she meets an opponent who can match that physicality. He uses Alyssa Thomas as the example and calls it bully ball. Again, that is his interpretation, not an objective category in the box score. But it opens a better basketball question than simply laughing at misses. Physical advantage is part of Reese's game. Using strength, leverage, and persistence to create possessions is legitimate basketball. The challenge comes when an opponent neutralizes that advantage. What is the counter? Can you finish with touch instead of force? Can you score over length? Can you punish somebody from a different area? Can you move the ball quickly enough that the defense cannot load up? That is where development matters. The players who become hardest to guard are usually the ones who can answer the defense's second question. Maybe plan A is strength. Fine, but when the opponent takes away plan A, what is plan B? That is why focusing only on whether Reese looks awkward can actually miss the more interesting issue. Awkward does not automatically mean ineffective. There are highly effective athletes in every sport whose movement does not look aesthetically perfect. Efficiency matters more than beauty. If an awkward possession still creates points, fouls, rebounds, and extra opportunities, coaches can live with ugly. If the same awkwardness repeatedly costs possessions, then it becomes a real developmental problem. That distinction is more useful than saying she has no skill, but it is also why the parody can hurt. It transforms a correctable technical weakness into a permanent character. Instead of "she needs to improve this," the joke says, "this is simply who she is." And now we get to the response from the other side, because some people were not laughing at all.
Yikes. Now do CC, you gotta wear a gonzo nose though. Yikes. This is a bozo who watches lowlights and never actually watched her play. This is legit whack, and I hope the worst for you going forward. Dudes like you don't get punched enough. Oh, we hurt somebody's feelings. Somebody's feelings got hurt. Even when you're trying your best to act awkward, you still have smoother movement than hers.
That escalated quickly. One critic calls the creator a bozo who only watches lowlights. Another says they hope the worst for him and complains that people like him don't get punched enough. Then somebody else jumps in saying that even when the impersonator intentionally tries to look awkward, his movement still appears smoother than Reese's. That is the internet argument in miniature. One side says you are dishonestly cherry-picking the worst moments. The other side says the cherry-picked moments are accurate enough that everybody instantly recognizes them. Both statements can contain some truth. Yes, a low-light compilation is cherry-picked. That is literally what makes it a low-light compilation. And yes, recurring flaws can still be real even when somebody edits them together for comedic effect. The mistake is assuming you have to choose between those two ideas. If Reese has a rough finishing game, showing the misses is fair. Pretending those misses represent every possession she played is not. If someone says her finishing needs serious improvement, that can be basketball analysis. If someone says she possesses no basketball ability whatsoever, that is something much bigger than the evidence shown. But from a content perspective, nuance is at a disadvantage. The parody needs an exaggerated version of Reese. The reaction channel needs an exaggerated version of the parody. The angry commenter needs an exaggerated version of the reaction channel. Every step raises the temperature, and suddenly millions of people are no longer evaluating a player. They are evaluating a symbol. That is the part people underestimate when they ask why Angel Reese receives this level of attention. Controversy itself has become part of her value. Fans watch because they support her. Critics watch because they want another clip. Reaction channels watch because both groups will argue in the comments. Attention does not require affection. Sometimes being one of the league's most polarizing players produces more engagement than being universally liked ever could. And the host himself basically acknowledges that when he starts reading the comments and notices how divided the audience has become.
Most of the comments that I've read, people are on his side. Why, there's some Angel Reese simps in the comment section that are mad at this? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Max, come on, G. Even though it's in B-Dot doing different shit, you still doing this? This one was funny, but damn. Hey, if you gotta let, why fix it if it's not broken? Why fix it if it's not broken?
That line is telling. Most of the comments he read were siding with the impersonator, but there were Reese supporters furious about it. Then another commenter criticizes the creator for continuing to make the same type of content, and the response is basically, why change something that works? That may be the biggest answer in this entire video. Why does Angel Reese low-light content keep appearing? Because people keep watching it. The creator gets engagement from the parody. Reaction channels get engagement reacting to the parody. Supporters quote post it to attack the creator. Critics share it to mock Reese. Everybody thinks they are participating for a different reason, but the algorithm sees the same thing: attention. That incentive can flatten a complicated athlete into a collection of repeatable traits. Reese becomes missed layups. Clark becomes deep threes and crowd numbers. Another player becomes technical fouls. Another becomes trash talk. It is easier to package a person when the audience already understands the character. The danger for Reese is that once a caricature becomes established, even improvement may take time to change public perception. One strong finishing game will not erase months of memes. Players often have to outperform their reputation repeatedly before the reputation catches up. But that also gives Reese enormous leverage. If the weakness everybody mocks is this obvious, the response is obvious too. Improve the finishing enough that the parody stops matching the games. Imagine what happens to this entire genre of content if those second chances begin turning into points consistently. The same people collecting misses would suddenly have fewer clips. The me-bounds joke loses power when the first shot goes down. The awkward movement jokes matter less when efficiency rises. That is the late payoff people often miss when discussing social media criticism. You cannot control whether strangers make jokes. You can control how much current material they have to work with. And that is why the next comment might be the funniest one, because it accidentally reveals how deeply people have studied Reese's habits just to make the imitation more accurate.
This is the most likes I've seen you get in years, and it's an Angel Reese video. You miss, she uses poker fingers in almost every... damn, that's true. That is...
Most legs I've seen you get in years, and it's an Angel Reese video. Then somebody points out another tiny detail in the impersonation. Think about what that means. Viewers have watched enough Reese possessions to recognize tiny pieces of body language, shot selection, and finishing mechanics when another person copies them. For a player critics supposedly believe is irrelevant, they spend an extraordinary amount of time studying her. That contradiction is one of the strangest things about modern sports fandom. People will insist an athlete is terrible, overrated, and not worth discussing, then consume hours of content about that athlete. They know the statistics, they know the interviews, they know the posts, they know the opponents, they know when the next game starts. That is not irrelevance, it is negative fascination. And negative fascination can be incredibly powerful in sports media, because it creates an audience that arrives hoping for failure. A supporter needs a reason to celebrate. A critic only needs one missed shot. That changes the economics of attention. A great performance might trend because fans love it. A bad performance can trend because both fans and critics argue about what it means. Reese sits directly in the middle of that machine. But this is also where critics should be careful. If every mistake becomes proof that she is hopeless, then there is no room for development. Young professional players are supposed to improve. Footwork changes. Touch develops. Decision-making speeds up. Players learn which attempts they can finish and which ones need to be kicked back out. The version of a player you see early in a career is not guaranteed to be the final version. That does not mean improvement should be assumed. It has to happen on the floor. But if the criticism is really about basketball, then critics should be willing to update their opinion if the basketball changes. Otherwise, it was never analysis. It was just a position they wanted to defend. And that brings us to the last piece of this story. Why this particular parody generated enough heat for an entire reaction video in the first place.
We have a skit clowning Angel Reese, making fun of how embarrassing she really is on the basketball court. Like the video, hype the video, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribe to the channel. That would mean so much to me. Every player has lowlights, but Angel Reese lowlights on another level.
The host introduces it as a skit, clowning Angel Reese, then immediately admits every player has lowlights before arguing that Reese's are on another level. That sentence contains the whole controversy. Nobody disputes that basketball players miss shots. The argument is over whether Reese's struggles are unusually severe, whether the internet exaggerates them because of who she is, and how much weight those mistakes should carry when evaluating everything else she contributes. The parody answers aggressively. The mistakes are not only real, they are defining. Reese's defenders answer almost the opposite way. The clips are cherry-picked precisely because critics need to remove the productive possessions in order to create that image. The fairest conclusion sits somewhere more uncomfortable for both sides. The finishing criticism is not invented simply because the internet is mean. Repeated struggles near the basket are something a player can be evaluated on, and a frontcourt player who generates frequent close-range opportunities benefits enormously from converting more of them. But a compilation built specifically to make somebody look bad is not a complete scouting report either. Both can be true. What makes the story viral is that almost nobody wants both to be true. The anti-Reese crowd wants the lowlights to settle the entire argument. The pro-Reese crowd wants the existence of bad faith trolling to invalidate criticism that may still contain legitimate basketball points. That polarization guarantees the next bad game will create another wave of edits, and the next strong game will create another wave of people declaring the criticism dead. The player herself is competing against something larger than the opponent in front of her. She is competing against a public image that gets reinforced every time one of these clips circulates. And public images are stubborn. Once fans expect awkward finishes, they notice every awkward finish. Once fans expect empty rebounds, they inspect every rebound. Once fans believe the media overrates someone, every compliment sounds suspicious. Psychology takes over from there. That is why the strongest response Reese can make is not online. It is boring, repetitive basketball development. Footwork, balance, touch, finishing through contact. Recognizing when the first attempt is not there. Turning those extra possessions she already creates into efficient offense. Because if that happens, something fascinating follows. The same visibility that makes every mistake louder will make every improvement louder too. The audience is already watching. The cameras are already there. The critics are already collecting evidence. So give them different evidence. And if the improvement never comes, then the parody stops looking like a temporary joke and starts looking more like a criticism that identified a lasting weakness. That is the actual pressure surrounding Angel Reese right now. Not whether one comedian can imitate her. Not whether one reaction host can roast her. The question is whether the version of her game that became a meme remains recognizable long enough for the meme to define her. So you have to choose, is this parody exposing a real basketball problem that Reese seriously needs to fix? Or are people using selected lowlights to make a productive player look far worse than she actually is? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you want more WNBA breakdowns where we separate the clips from the full story, like the video and subscribe.